Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for giving me another hour of your day and another day of your time, because you did not have to do this, especially since we did a live earlier today with former captain in the Serbian army, Mike Mihalovic. I just wanted to come back because I gave you my words that I would do my best to try to come back and address some of the news issues, brief, short, and to the point, as always. Now, it's never brief, but it is to the point. You can believe that, because this is no holds barred. I also want to thank each and every one of you for your support on all of the platforms: Twitch, Twitter, Locals, Rumble, Odyssey, the Red Pill Diaries, the Red Pill Journals. Thank you so much. Now, I see something's going on with the view count. As the viewers came in, people were getting disconnected. It's cool. You'll come back in. And I already know what the deal is with that. So we won't even poke the bear talking about all that. So we know how the numbers get suppressed, but we'll keep going. All right, because we know there's a bigger audience watching, and there's a bigger audience that will watch. Okay, but I will have to say this. Earlier today, as I'm looking at my dashboard, I took pictures when I was interviewing Mike Mihalovic. I think it's Mihalovic. And I noticed I took pictures. And there were dozens of you in the chat, dozens of you watching, right? And after the show, YouTube said I had 2 views, 17 likes. 2 views, 17 likes. Let me say that one last time. 2 views, 17 likes. I had more. I put up a few of the chat members talking on the screen that proved that that was a lie, okay? So, but we're going to go into it. We know that the machine is trying to stop this platform, but like I say, you cannot stop what God has ordained. We're going into the news right now. So we're looking at America now stoking up more tensions in the Baltics. Didn't I tell you guys this? In the Eastern European sector. Listen to me good. I don't know if you guys will understand this. That America will not yield. I don't care that she's bankrupt. I don't care that her military is costing her an arm, leg, a throat, a heart, a brain, and a kidney. I don't care anything about it. America will not stop, because the people who are in charge of America believe that it is America's divine right to rule everybody and force and mold every nation and government in its image and in its likeness. That is why they get carried away with this right to protect and intervene in nations. That is why they always talking about democracy and our values and this. It's amazing that you value human rights when it's beneficial to you, but you ignore human rights as you occupy illegally Syria, as you bomb the Syrians, and they are telling you we don't want you here. You ignore their right of sovereignty, their right to exist solely to themselves. You ignore the humanitarian right of these people to live the way they want to live, how they want to live under their laws and under their government, and you want to superimpose your will, your way, and your governance over those people. It's amazing how it works with you, right? When you go and bomb Afghanistan, when you go and bomb Iraq, Libya, and others, it's always justifiable. But when Russia is defending itself on its border, Russia is aggressive. Russia is trying to reconstitute the Soviet Union. Russia is this and Russia is that. Now, let us give a little weight to what you're saying, that Russia is aggressive and Russia is trying to reconstitute the Soviet Union or trying to colonize former Soviet republics. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say that's true. Who has a better right to them, Russia or the United States? These people are tied with history, language, culture, religion, geography, and they all once encompassed one big nation. So does Russia have a better right to do what it's doing, or does America have the right to come from 5,000 miles away and then scream about Russia trying to reconstitute the Soviet Union while steadily gobbling up nations in the North Atlantic terrorist organization called NATO? How about we look at it like that? And when we look at it like that, we get to the core of the matter. That America is the belligerent one. That America is aggressive. That America is the one that is a threat to world peace and security. How dare you tell me, and you live 5,000 miles away, that you know better or you know what's best for me and my people? That is arrogant to the T. And think about this. These nations that America is bombing, these nations that America is occupying, that she's destroying, that she's pillaging, they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of history. America has less than 300 years of history. And she wants to tell them how to live, how to act, what their culture should be, how their government should be, how they should be governed. Nobody in the West sees nothing wrong with that. Why? Because it's America. When America kills, you can't believe that we really tried to kill those people. That was just collateral damage. If a stray missile strikes a tenement building in Ukraine, Russia is going after the civilian population. This is a war crime. All saying that occupying Somalia, parts of Yemen, Japan, Korea, all across Africa and Latin America, and even occupying European nations and Middle Eastern nations illegally. Do you see the arrogance in that? So this thing has to come to a head. Shout out to Net Rando in the building. Shout out. This thing has to come to a head because it cannot go on and on and on and on. There comes a time when there's a bursting point. See, back in the 50s, the 40s, and the 60s, the propaganda machine, and I'm not communist in the least, so don't even think that. I'm not fascist in the least. Don't even think that. I'm not going to condemn any of those governments, but I am not. So now America puts out the propaganda, and shout out to Flying Crocodile about how bad and brutal communism was, right? And then if we look at the situation from then to today, who is the nation that has been bombing, robbing, pillaging, and destroying nations? She's not a builder up of nations. She's a destroyer of nations. Right? Do you understand this? So when you look at the word that America, when she talks to you, you have to weigh what she says with her actions. She's for freedom and justice. She's for peace and security. And then you should point back to her and say, well, if that is the case, show us where that has been a case of your policies in the last 60, 70 years. Where have you gone that has not caused untold death, destruction, and eventually ended up with you occupying them in some form, be it military occupation or governmental occupation? Huh? And when you point these things out, it exposes the hypocrisy, the arrogance, the racism, and the fanaticism and fascism. These people will not yield. Going back to something that I said about the Balkans and Eastern Europe. Russia has a better right to those nations or bringing those nations under its sphere of influence than America. And if we put away the culture, if we put away the language, the family ties, and all of them being in a nation together before, we can just look at the geography. America is 5,000 miles away. But it's okay for you to gobble them up into NATO and then force them to be your vassal states. They are vassal states. And then if Russia screams out, hey, listen, this is our sphere of influence, America says no one is allowed to have a sphere of influence. And then she has the Monroe Doctrine, where she says no nation is allowed to challenge her in the Western Hemisphere because this is her backyard. You're telling me Ukraine, which borders Russia, which comprises former Russian lands, is not in Russia's sphere of influence, even though those are Slavic people? You're telling me Yugoslavia, the nation that you bombed and balkanized, should not be in Russia's sphere? Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, right? Kazakhstan. Those nations were tied through a history, through culture, through language, through geography, and at one point as a unified nation. But America has more right to them than Russia has. Man, stop this foolishness here. Absolutely crazy. All right? So we're looking at desperation. And what I said about America would not yield, I don't think that the Russians or the Chinese more so than the Russians have grasped this idea. They believe that if they can beat back Ukraine a little bit and force a signing of a treaty, then this will give them breathing room. Now, I'm going to ask you this. Did that happen with the Indians? When has America honored a treaty that she signed? Answer me this. When has she honored one? We can go all the way back to her founding, okay? When she was founded in 1776, as they say. All right. Do you know the first nation that recognized America? Do you know what nation that was? It wasn't her European partners. It wasn't England. It wasn't France. It wasn't Germany. You know, the first nation that recognized America as an independent and sovereign state was an African nation by the name of Morocco. And Morocco opened up its ports to the United States. They signed an agreement in 1776, okay? Morocco opened up its ports because America needed those ports open for her economy to be viable. And the Moroccan government opened the ports up so that America could have a viable economy. But it was under a condition that America would not enslave blacks. Guess what America did to go around that treaty that she signed? Took the name of Moors off of black people, called them niggers. When has she honored a contract that she signed? Huh? I'm asking you this. If you don't believe me, go Google it. I'm not making anything up. Okay? So, what I'm saying to the Russians is they need to have a deeper understanding of their enemy. America will not stop until she has accomplished her goals, or she's met head on in a way that is befitting for a bully. You understand? She's in everybody's business. Nobody even calls this out. She's in Latin America, telling the Latin American nations what they should and shouldn't do and what is acceptable and not tolerated. She's in Africa doing it. She's in the Caribbean doing it. She's in Europe doing it. She's in Central Asia doing it. She's in the Middle East doing it. She's in Asia doing it. You don't think she's trying to mold the world in its image and its likeness? When you're trying to dictate to others how their culture and what they should think and what they accept, like you see the nation of Uganda and all of these other nations that are telling you, look, we can be civil countries, we can even enjoy trade with each other, but don't bring homosexuality here. It's not a part of our custom. We don't want it. Guess what happens? America sanctions the nations, not over something that is about trade, not over something that is about war, not over something about real politics. They sanction those nations because the nations refuse to conform to the sickness in the minds of America. And that's not trying to mold and force people to bow. Huh? You got, man, I'm telling you, this nation is on a course for total destruction. Look within her borders. While America is pointing her finger everywhere else, telling everybody else what to do, society is falling apart at home. You have a growing cultural, racial, and economic divide. And nobody else accepts the responsibility. It's always somebody else's fault. Always. The violence in inner city. There must be a return to the rule of law. Mr. Man, when has America executed the rule of law in the right way? Because the rule of law will have you governing your actions and your policies as you judge others. What does that scripture say? Judge not, lest ye be judged. For the judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. Huh? Huh? Mr. Christian Nation, How about taking some advice from your own book? That's what I'm asking you. This thing has every recipe for total explosion. Excuse me. And what I mean by that is America is not going to yield. She may buy time, a little time, by accepting Russia coming further and further, because she has no choice, except if she crosses so many lines, Russia will be forced to hit her in the mouth. But the problem with her trying to confront Russia at this moment militarily is this. She has a big problem in the Middle East. She has a newly emerging and surging Iran. And now nations are drawing inspiration from Iran's moves against America's hegemonic ways and backing of the occupying powers in Israel or occupied Palestine. You understand? So she has to come to grips that she has to deal with that. So she's buying time in Ukraine. She's buying time in the Balkans or the Caucasus to try to position herself to try to suppress the rise of the Palestinians, suppress the rise of true people representation. I won't say democracy, because the original definition of democracy is the rule of demons. They changed it, but I got the book. I got the older book from the 1800s. The democracy is rule of demons. So I won't say by the rising tide of democracy, the will of the people. See these sheikdoms, these fiefdoms, and these kingdoms over in the northern part of Africa, in the Middle East. When America becomes even more weakened, they're going to be in trouble, because they're suppressing their own populations to please America and to be a minion of America, so that they can enjoy the spoils of being a sidekick of the American empire, all while, on the other hand, pretending that they are against the policies of America. And pivot to Asia, because it's a non-Western, non-white nation that has the economic and military capability and clout to not only rebuff any aggression by the American empire, but to also go on the offensive and to stymie any aggression and to put the hurt on America. And this is unacceptable in the eyes of those think tanks in Washington, the government, the military and war planners, and these arrogant, ignorant politicians in Washington, D.C. So now she's plagued with all types of problems. But this is only judgment. Remember what I told you all? When you put out a certain thing, science, forget what America says about her being exceptional. She cannot nullify the laws of science, the basic laws of science. She cannot nullify. And those basic laws of science says, as thou hast done, so shall it be done unto thee. Meaning that what you put out, you have to receive it in the exact or greater form. That's the law of science. Any reaction will receive an equal or greater response. Because she was able to buy time over the decades, she thought that she was free of that. She thought that she had beaten time, and she thought she had suppressed the laws of science. And now she's realizing that this unbridled spending, not from 1971 or 70, when the world went off the gold and silver standard, but even years before then, 1914 marked the end of her power. We're living in the last days of American empire. We're living in the last days of Western hegemony. 1914, when they took you to World War I. Now I want to ask, for those of you who say that everybody else every other nation, every other people, especially them, like the Western people say, the Muslims are savages, and their book is about war. Who started World War I? And what was it about? It was about not sharing the pie and wanting total domination. Now, let me ask you this. Who started World War II? The same people who started World War I. And now we're in the midst of World War III, the final war, And I ask you this question again. Who started World War III? America, the UK, and all of the colonial powers, because they feel that they are exceptional and that everybody is beneath them, regardless of their talking about human rights, regardless of them talking about humanity and civility and all of that stuff. All one has to do is look at the policies. That's all. That's all. I was looking at RT on Rumble. I believe it was last week. I've been looking at it all week, but this specifically, I believe it was last week. And they were screaming about the migrant crisis in Europe. And they were talking about how this is unsustainable and that they have got to start closing their borders to migrants, right? And they said that the people come there, they don't want to assimilate. So if you don't want to assimilate, don't come here, right? And then that gets a lot of people, yeah, that's right. This is such and such and such and such. And then one has to just stop for a minute and say, why are those people coming here? Now, here's the kicker. Those same countries that are screaming about the migrants, those are the same countries that force their companies into those lands where those migrants are from, and they steal off the resources, assassinate the presidents, forge color revolutions, have covert operations there. And then when that is not enough, when they can't bribe the leadership, when they can't dominate the sphere of politics in those countries, then they demonize them, sanction them, and eventually wage war on them and destroy. They don't just wage war. Listen to what I'm saying. They don't just wage war. They intentionally destroy every institution that makes that nation a viable, independent nation. Look at what's going on in Libya. Look at what they did in Somalia. Huh? Look at what they tried to do in Iraq and Syria. The color revolution they tried to put over in Kazakhstan. The one years before that they tried to do in Kyrgyzstan. Look at what they did in Georgia. Look at what they are doing in Ukraine. Huh? Look at what they did in the Philippines. And then they want to scream about migrants. The rule of law and violence. There is no person, no nation that is one who commits more acts of violence than America. She's been at war her whole history. Meaning that England too. When we say America, we talk about the UK too, because these two are one and the same, the two daughters of Babylon. And they have committed atrocities around the world, and then they want you to push it to the side. They want to blame the victims so that they can cloak their own sins. That's crazy. You go and bomb a nation into the Stone Age. The people are screaming and running towards you because they see that they can eat there, they can live there, they can have something that can sustain their families, and you're screaming about them coming across your borders. What you should have done is not intervene in their domestic politics or bomb them. Maybe that would have stopped the onslaught of migrants in your country. Have you ever thought about that? No, because you're too arrogant. Now America is screaming about the border crisis. Everybody should secure the border. And I to some extent, I agree. Every nation should have secured borders. But here's the kicker. Why are you screaming about it now? You weren't screaming about it when you were violating those Central and South American nations' borders, overthrowing their leaders, assassinating people, causing revolutions and riots all in those nations. You had violated their borders. And now that they're flooding to the north, you're screaming now. But those are consequences of your policies over years and decades. And you don't want to come to grips that your policies are now biting you in your behind. Right? Everybody who's listening, tell me one lie that I told. Just one. I know I'm brag. I know I come raw, without a chaser. And I know sometimes I'm in your face. But I'm asking you, show me one lie that I've told. And here's the kicker. If you go read the records, if you go do your research, You should understand that these things that are happening are a consequence of imperial policy. Those people in Iraq that America calls insurgents, how did they become insurgents? Because you empowered Saddam to come into power. You armed him with chemical weapons to use on Iran when it was necessary, you and the UK, with the full backing of NATO. Right? What did Donald Rumsfeld say? That this is our guy. This is a man of peace. That's what he said about Saddam. Fast forward to when they invaded. He's a tyrant, a dictator. He's mad, killing his people in masses. Right? You put him in power. And when he no longer shucked and jived for you, you got mad. When he switched Iraq off the dollar system, because Saddam did that. A lot of you don't know. He took Iraq. He did a bold step. He took Iraq off the dollar system. And he was using the euro, even though that's still part of the dollar system, but he wasn't using the dollar in oil trade and gas trade. And this was a no-no. So they vilified him. They beat him up in the media so that they can beat him up on the ground. But he was your man, Tom Osborne, Osama bin Laden. That was your man. The Taliban that you scream about, who empowered them? Who armed them? Who trained them? Who gave them finances? Who did all of that stuff? Was it Russia? Was it the African nations? Was it Gaddafi? Was it Saddam? No. It was your boys, the big new Brzezinski under Jimmy Carter. Huh? And then when you got bit in your behind, you want to go invade Afghanistan. And it was not about 9/11, y'all. Afghanistan was not about 9/11. I want you to do something. They may have scrubbed the internet with this. But you Google this. Ronald Reagan talks to Taliban at the White House. Just Google that. They should have pictures. If they haven't scrubbed the internet of it, they should have pictures. When Ronald Reagan invited the so-called terrorist organization, the Taliban, to the White House. And he was negotiating with them. Guess what for? So that American companies could invest in that untapped oil and gas and diamond trade and gold trade. And the U.S. wanted to build a pipeline in Afghanistan. But they wanted to do it with pennies on the dollars, and the Taliban was negotiating, said, we don't have problems with Western companies coming in. We don't have problems with the pipeline. What we have problems with is the amount of money that you're telling us you're going to get. This is pennies on this is our resources that you're going to be tapping. These are our resources. And then from that moment on, the U.S. State Department, the CIA, and the Alphabet Gang, they went to work on vilifying and dividing the Taliban. I'm not making this up. Google it. They were once referred to as the Mujahideen, those brave warriors, as it was said on the Rambo movie. Boy, how funny how things change, right? They change. I'm telling you, they'll change it in a heartbeat, but if you have a short memory, they'll get over on you and you'll drink the Kool-Aid of propaganda. So, bin Laden, Tom Osborne, is a product of the CIA. Knowing the intricacies of what went on with bin Laden got Benazir Bhutto killed, the former prime minister of Pakistan. When America was saying that Osama bin Laden was killed in a raid on television, she slipped in an interview, and she was talking about how bin Laden died in a hospital in I think she said Qatar, one of those fiefdoms in the Middle East, a U.S. hospital, I might add, on a U.S. base. All right, he was being treated for, I think she said, kidney something. Yes, Mr. Osama bin Laden was being treated at a U.S. military facility, and the U.S. wants you to believe that they went over there and assassinated him. Man, get out of here with that foolishness. Benazir Bhutto made a mistake. Google this. It should be on YouTube right now if you think I'm lying about this. The former prime minister, it's a woman, she was assassinated afterwards because she let the cat out the bag. Shout out to Edwin Allen. Shout out to Med. My guy Med is in the building. No, seriously. What I'm telling you is the truth. These are facts. You cannot make facts not be facts. Right? Go, everything I'm saying to you, I give you keywords. I tell you what to go look at, pull it up, do your research, see if I'm lying to you. They want you to believe that Obama ordered this and he went out in a blaze of glory. But she said Osama bin Laden died in 2000 or something, the early parts of 2000 at a U.S. a military hospital. How is that? But that was the U.S.'s boy. The Taliban was the U.S.'s boy. Saakashvili was the U.S. boy. You know, the one who tried to run Georgia in the ground. And when they could not, they bribed the former president of Ukraine. And when they could not put their plans through, then they initiated the Maidan to get rid of him. And when they got rid of him through undemocratic means, mind you, 48 hours before they ousted him, Viktor Yanukovych, the EU and the US came to an agreement with Viktor Yanukovych that the elections will be called early. Mind you, I want you to understand something. He won the elections, and it wasn't good enough for the United States. They did a color revolution. And then afterwards, they questioned the legitimacy of his election, so they did another one, and he won again. And so they allowed him to govern for a minute, and when he agreed to join the EU and the US wanted him to cut ties with Russia. And the Russians say, hey, we have no problem with Ukraine joining the EU. We just don't, you're a part of the Eurasian Economic Union or whatever. We just don't want you backdooring goods from Europe into Russia because that could cause the blowback effect to our companies, right? And Yanukovych had a second thought about it. And he went in and he voiced his thoughts to the EU and the US, and they went and plotted to overthrow him. These are the same people who are screaming about democracy. Overthrew the democratically elected president of Ukraine. He may have been corrupt, but he was their corrupt president. They voted him in. Look what they did with their so-called ally. Erdogan, the president and former prime minister of Turkey. They not only did they initiate a NATO coup in Turkey, they tried to assassinate him, his administration, and his entire family. Were it not for Iran, Russia, and Syria, then he would have been killed. His family would have been killed. But when the coup took place, the Russians got permission from Assad to fly Erdogan and his staff over to the Russian air base in Syria for protection. And the Iranians had given heads up of what was going down. Why don't anybody talk about this? This is courtesy of the Western democracies. And as I told you earlier, look at Sudan. How they planned for the balkanization of Sudan. They even planned for the destruction of Libya. When Libya was the place where the UK and the US had the largest military base, well, the UK was just there because the UK's largest military base is in Canada. And it's about the size of a city. But the US had the largest military base over there, and that's how they were collecting information, intelligence, and that's how they was running their blackout programs and transiting drugs, and they were employing corrupt people to become leaders, and they were overthrowing governments through that area right there. And when Muammar Gaddafi came to power, he said, enough is enough, you got to go. And the US, the UK, France, and Italy, them never forgave him. They pretended they did, and they dropped hints over time that they were going to do what they did. I said this before in one of my programs. Go look at this movie called No Way Out. No Way Out. You can go see. I'm giving you. You don't even have to do the research. I'm giving you the stuff. Go and because I used to watch that movie all the time. And Ray Liotta, R.I.P. Ray Liotta, he was the star in it, and he was a military operative. And he went to prison and he was having flashbacks, and he was talking about things that were happening in Libya. Listen to me good. And there was a so-called government-inspired uprising, a Western government-inspired uprising in Benghazi. And they went through this of what happened and how this thing got out of hand, and Libya was just engulfed in war. What do we see today? What happened? The movie mimicked what will soon become reality. They went to Syria. See, I'm giving you this little stuff so that you'll understand what's going on. So when you hear the news, they want you to believe that there was an uprising that started in Syria, and there was at the United States. They were feeding people in there, and they were protesting and stuff. And then the United States, just like with the Maidan, they put in special operatives to attack the crowd with weaponry. And the Assad government said, "Hey, we're not doing that." So they sent law enforcement there to try to find out what was going on and to quell it. And America in the West blamed Assad for it. When on record, he sent the force. He even notified all the nations, right? And you know what this was about? America, the UK, and NATO had plans to usurp oil and gas control from Russia. And so they needed Syria because they were going to run pipelines to Syria, through Syria, up through Turkey, so that the EU would be way less dependent on Russian oil and gas, right? Look what's playing out today in Ukraine. The sanctions on Russian oil and gas, right? Who becomes the benefactor of that? The United States, by quadrupling the oil and gas prices that they sell to their so-called brothers and allies. This is brought to you by the so-called Christian, the Democratic West. Let me put this up here. Edward Allen, I'm gonna put this up here. Forced dependency for control. This is what they're doing. They're in Armenia with a color revolution. They really got rid of the government that really was pro-Russian, and they put in their own boy, corrupt as hell, who allowed for a war to take place, which he did not use good judgment and reasoning, and lost territory, so that they can reorientate themselves towards NATO. And now the president or the prime minister of Armenia is now openly stating that they want to move more towards the US and NATO. This has been an ally of Russia for decades. It's crazy, right? So let's see. I see you, Edward. I love the fake news reporter. Picked up deadly canister, sniff. Yep, nerve gas. Hey, I want if any of you have the chance to go to YouTube before they scrub the internet and do this. You know, the Gulf War. Google it. I don't know. You might put in some keywords like this. Stage actors mimic something like stage actors in Iraq pretend to hide from Saddam or something like that. When you do that, you'll see CNN, and you think CNN is a news organization. It is. It is a news organization strictly for the government. In this organization, these guys the stuff was on film. After taping, they're back there laughing and joking about what's going on and all this stuff. They're in a studio pretending that they're out in Iraq, right? And then the guys will say, "Hey, when the alarm goes off, you duck over there. You go." This is what's going on. We've got to give it meaning and feeling so the people can see. Go look at it. And then the alarms will go off, the sirens, missile sirens will go off, and they jump behind it, and then they're screaming like they're under attack. And then after they thought the camera stopped rolling, all of them get up there laughing and the stuff like that. This is how they view your intelligence. They are the arch deceivers. This is how they view everybody else. They believe that everybody is stupid except them. Everybody is beneath them. And the policies bear that witness. You understand? Yes, Flying Crocodile, thank you. Edward, thank you. So I'm just giving you the ins and outs of what's really going on. So when you're seeing the tensions rise in Ukraine, and you see the tensions rising in Georgia. I talked about this on a show roughly about last year sometime, about that foreign agents law, because America had the foreign agents law, all right? Why is it all right for America to secure her national interests, but nobody else's? Why is America screaming about homeland security when they are making everybody else's homeland unstable? This thing that is happening in Georgia, the people, the United States have some flunkies there from the Saakashvili's regime. You know, the one who assassinated some Russian peacekeepers in Russia, beat the brakes off of them, Israel and NATO in Georgia. And this was before Russia constituted this powerful military that it has today. This was years ago. Russia defeated them in a couple days. And they could have taken Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia, but they put a halt to it. And they went to the negotiating table. And look what's happening. It is starting back up again. When you give the empire breathing room, they're just going to go back, figure out some other foolish thing, and implement it. So Saakashvili and his crew are now trying to stop the parliament from passing a bill. And listen, I want you to understand the significance of this. People that are employed by the U.S. in the West are out in the streets trying to attack Parliament to try to stop this bill. You know what this bill is about? This bill is essentially the government saying any funding of protesters, any NGOs, any funding of politicians, or any gifts that is given to leaders over the people of Georgia must be first exposed for the people to see. It can't be behind closed doors like it has been. Now, who would protest that? Because you know that bill is in your interest. Who would protest that? So we know that if that is in the best interest of Georgia and those people are protesting, then what they're not for the best interest of Georgia, and they want a payday or they want some position that has been promised to them by the empire. But look how it worked out for Ukraine. Look how it's working out for Israel and Palestine. Look how it's working out for Yemen and Armenia. Look how it's working out for all of the shields and the pawns and the dictators that America and the West puts in power. You've got to be a fool to accept those bribes. See, it was a time when America was powerful. She was powerful. I'm talking about real powerful. That nobody dared to go against America's will, America's dictates, or America's policy for fear of American retribution. But those days are long gone. Now nations are saying, I'm fed up. You're in everybody's business, trying to tell everybody what to do, trying to tell them what's best for them, while in your own home, poverty is exploding. Violence is everywhere. And there's no agreement anywhere. So what we're looking at is the collapse of American society at home and the collapse of American influence globally. Courtesy of these war hawks and the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, the largest and the greatest terrorist organization ever comprised in the history of man and mankind. It's something else. So Edward Allen says, elites think we are ignorant savages. Get them. A little mad, they come out and say it. Yeah. I'm telling you. And think about this. When they bombed Iraq at the presidential correspondence dinner, right? They laughed about it. They made jokes about it. Every time they bomb a nation, they occupy a nation, they bring death, destruction, and ruin to them. They laugh about this with the same people that are supposed to report the truth. They have these reporters there rubbing elbows, laughing too, because they have a vested interest in keeping the system going. Do you think this can go on in perpetuity? It cannot. Do you think that there's an old saying that you can kick a dog 100 times and it might not bark, growl, or bite. But you catch him on the wrong day and you kick him, he might do all of those things and then some. So now what America has been doing, the West has been doing, what Britain has been doing is just that, kicking and biting and growling at everybody or waging war thinking that everybody would cower. And now that's no longer the case. You are arrogant and must be brought to your knees. When you're dealing with arrogant people, the only way sometimes to make them touch reality is by socking it to them. Right? The arrogance of Blinken, the U.S. so-called Secretary of State, going to China, telling China what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, what they're going to do if China does this. Now, China is not allowed to give Russia a slingshot, a rock, or a bat. All while America and the Western nations are openly saying that they're arming Ukraine to the teeth so that they can continue this war because it's profitable for the military-industrial complex. Man, what Xi Jinping should have told them is bite me and get out of here. Now, if you want to go down that route with this sanction route, we're not Venezuela. We're not Mali. We're not Syria. We're not Iran. And we're not even Russia. Our military industrial complex will dwarf all of those military industrial complexes, including yours. Our economy is the largest by purchasing power parity. Our economy is set to grow 5 to 6% this year alone, while yours is in decline and in recession. We are your largest investor. We're your largest bond buyer. We got it going on. We have a military that can confront you. You don't come to us and talk down to us. Get the hell out of here. And from this point on, the Taiwan Strait is off limits to you. You can't come through here no more because that's our territorial waters. And if you want to use this excuse about freedom of navigation, okay, use it and see how that works out for you. See, sometimes you got to get in the mud with those people who continue to be dirty. That's the only language they understand. I often say, and I will continue to say this ad nauseum, if I am being diplomatic to you, and I'm being accommodating to you, and I continue to try to voice my concerns and my opinions to you, and nothing is getting through, and I see that my language is not being spoken at the table, then the common sense thing to do, the rational thing to do, is for us to have any dialogue. It's for me to examine your language. And once I examine your language, I'll learn your language in and out. And then guess what? I'll speak to you in your language. And we know that the language of the West, the language of the U.S., is the language of force. That's the only language they respect. So I'll speak it to you, and I'll speak it to you ad nauseum. You understand? That is what the world should be doing. Stop cowering and trying to be diplomatic for the cameras. We're doing this is leading the world closer and closer to the brink of thermonuclear escalation. Sometimes you got to be a man. Like they say on the street, and I'm not being vulgar, sometimes if you're a man, you got to tuck it, you got to stand up, and you say, let's get it. That's what you got to do. Wherever the chips may fall, nonetheless, they will fall. So let's get it. You're not going to come to my country, my neighborhood, my area of the globe, and dictate to me what I should and should not be doing when you're the only nation on the earth that's used nuclear weapons. You want to dictate what Iran has. Iran, we will not allow Iran to become a nuclear power. Who says it's in your power or in your hands to stop it? Huh? You're scared that Iran could become more independent as it is now, and that you won't be able to back Israel up in its crimes all across North Africa and the Middle East, because Iran would have the great neutralizer to Israel's threat and America's back. We're not the two, and I'm not the one. Iran made a mistake by entering the JCPOA. They did. I don't care what anybody say. That was a mistake. How can you go into an agreement with people, everybody in that agreement but you are nuclear powers? How can you let them dictate to you what you can and cannot do when it's under UN law, you have the right to do X, Y, and Z? There's no negotiation after that. If you don't want me to have these abilities, then kill your ability. Stop yours. If you don't want me to have a nuclear bomb, set the example by getting rid of yours. How about that? But you're not going to dictate to me what I can and can't do or what I should and shouldn't do when you are causing havoc all around the world, waging non-stop war, escalation, and violence the world over. Man, I wouldn't even take your advice. You couldn't even talk to me on violence. You couldn't talk to me on peace. You couldn't talk to me on military matters. You couldn't talk to me on sovereignty because you are not an example of what I should look for in those areas. That's not how things go. How is a rapist going to talk to a person, a law-abider, and tell them, hey, don't go out there raping? Huh? How is a killer going to go to the man that's in the mosque or in the church or in the synagogue or in the temple that's trying to live the right life, right? And then going to, hey, we won't allow you to go out there and kill anybody. The hell you say? How many bodies you have under you? If you don't get out of my face, you might be the first victim. So they could not come to me with this. I'm telling you, I'm a different type of dude. This stuff that these politicians do, that dance there, I cannot shuck and jive. I won't do it. Well, again, they might say, well, then America will attack. And I'll say, do what you got to do, because I'm going to do what I got to do when you attack. Who says that it's just going to be on my soil? Who says that I'm going to be the only person injured in this attack? So you see how when these attacks go on, these nations, they'll try to defend their country, right? They don't bring the battle to the aggressor. They allow the aggressor to be more aggressive by encircling them in their own land and keeping them preoccupied. That's not how things go. So somebody has to teach the West a lesson. And we see the global South doing that. I'm telling you. I see in the chat. Let's see. Let me put something up here. Boom. Flying crocodiles. And listen, let me say this first of all. I'm not an advocate of war. I'm an advocate of peace. But there cannot be any peace until the peace breaker has been removed from power. How can you dictate and talk to people and tell them what they should not do when you are the one causing havoc and raining destruction on every country around the globe? Your advice don't mean squat to me. So listen, Flying Crocodile says the U.S. introduced the foreign agent requirements because they know first and exactly how well they can be used to cause political division and manipulation of governments, because that's their M.O. Boom. Mic drop moment. I'm telling you. Mic drop moment. Flying Crocodile. Mic drop moment. I think I'm going to leave this up here for a minute. And listen, we're going to give this a 10-second moment of silence. I want you to check that out. Read it again. And then Flying Crocodile says, Xi should have given Biden a pedal power push bike as a state gift and clue as to the U.S. future. Absolutely. Absolutely. See, when you're dealing with aggressive people and you're a passive person or you're a humble person, they take your humility as a weakness. They take your desire for peace for a weakness, and they continue to escalate. Sometimes you have to step out of character and speak the language of the beast. If the language of the beast is violence, confrontation, and threats, guess what? I'll gladly oblige you. I'll return the favor to you. But when I return it, it's going to be tenfold. You don't get off. No, it's not going to be tit for tat. No, you tit me, and I'm going to tat you like that. That's how that's going to go. And that'll get you off of me. And I think these politicians around the world need to understand that, because America's not going to, she's not going to yield. The UK is not going to yield. NATO is not going to yield. Why won't they yield? Because they need this, they need to expand. They need to continue to engulf nations in the NATO. They need to continue to force people through the barrel of the gun. That's why America has all those aircraft carrier groups all around the world and all of the crucial waterways. It's not freedom of navigation. It's to hold the world ransom to dollar hegemony. And what they want to do is force everybody to use the dollar so that they can continue to expand, because guess what? If they can't continue to expand the debt cycle, boom goes the dynamite. Boom goes the dynamite. And without the dollar as the life's blood of the empire folds. The pound collapses. The mother of the empire folds. And the project of the empire collapses. That's the EU and the euro. They know that. So in their mind, if you don't believe what I'm saying, read the writings from the Project for a New American Century. Read some of the writings of the Brookings Institute, the Trilateral Commission, and all of these other think tanks that formulate policy for the politicians to implement in U.S. and Western governments so that they can try to maintain Western hegemony. If you think I'm lying, if you don't believe me, go read the policies. These people said that they will not allow anybody to rule or challenge the rule of America in the West. So what does that mean? If I'm rising and you're plotting to suppress my rise, and all of your plots and plans fail, what's your next step? To take the world to war. And why do you continue to try to modernize your nuclear weapons and continue to harp on you having nuclear weapons? I thought that you said nuclear weapons was the last stage of defense against an aggressor, against the homeland. Well, these nations are not coming against the homeland. In words, these nations are trying to free their homeland from dollar hegemony and economic and political suppression by the West. So that lets me know that in the mind of the leadership in the think tanks, there's a connection there. And the connection is we will defend American hegemony at all costs, even if that cost is taking the world to thermonuclear war. Otherwise, why do you spend trillions of dollars for it? If it's just for show, oh, we would never use nuclear weapons, then get rid of them then. Show me you'll never use it. Because I know this much. If I have a shirt that I'll never use, guess what I'll do? I'll use it for a rag or give it away. If I have a car that I never use, guess what I'll do? I'll sell it or give it away. Like I gave away my Chevy Trailblazer to a guy down the street from me. Because I knew the guy, and I didn't know him, but I knew him from my neighborhood, you know. So when you have something that you don't plan to use, it starts to occupy space that could be used for something else. Occupy money that could be spent on something else. So you say that you would never use them and get rid of them because they're occupying money and space that could be used for other things. Make me a believer. Like they say on the street, I'm from Missouri, the show me state, even though I'm not from Missouri for real. I'm just being facetious. I'm from Missouri, the show me state. Show me how much you are a lover of international law by removing all of these military bases around the world and bringing them back home. You know why some people say America needs to bring those troops home. When we get to the core, do you want me to tell you the core of why she doesn't do that? Here is the core of why she hasn't done that. It is because bringing those troops home, especially as America's economy continues to falter, fall, and go into decline and disrepair. If she brings those troops home who have been trained and missioned and conditioned for war back home, and there are no jobs, and she cannot play past the hot potato with the businesses about these phony job reports, and these people have families. Now they are trained for war. And these people have families, and if she brings them back and they have nothing to do, then we have a war at home then. Because the people are saying, I fought for the country. I was willing to give my all for the country, to defend my family and my nation. And now my car is being repossessed. I'm being evicted from my home. My children don't have anything to eat. You have a war den at home. This is the real reason why she refuses to bring those troops home. She believes that if she can keep those bases abroad, she can cower the nations and strong arm them into maintaining dollar hegemony, which gives life to her military industrial complex, which then is able to supply jobs to those people. That's what she's doing. And that's the real reason why she refuses to bring them home. But guess what? The BRICS, the global south, they're working on something. And as you see, more and more nations are joining the Eastern Bloc, right? Which means that America is implementing self-defeating policies by sanctioning Iran, by sanctioning Venezuela, by sanctioning Russia, by sanctioning Syria, and now threatening to sanction her greatest lender. What are those nations are going to do? Are they just going to sit there and take it? No. Common sense tells you if that you're threatening me and threatening this person over here and that person over there and that person, we need to get together and formulate a strategy on how to maintain our security together. And then, all right, Perseverance, good day, man. But listen, I'm glad you joined us, man. But what they should be doing, those nations getting together, formulating a strategy of how to best secure their national interests and how to at least cut the hegemon down to size by weakening her economically and politically. Isn't that what's going on? More nations are out of the dollar. And America has the nerve to say, this is what Blinken says. If you help Russia, we'll sanction you. We'll sanction Chinese entities and Chinese companies. Well, guess what? Guess what Xi said? Go do what you got to do. But I wouldn't advise that, because if you do, we are going to retaliate. Now, who do you think have more to lose? People say, well, China's biggest market is the United States. Yeah, but Xi wasn't a fool. You know what he did? He stimulated domestic spending. He stimulated his population's interest in maintaining a robust economy by domestic consumption and domestic investment to offset anything that America might do to its economy. So now they're prepared. So if America sanctions China, China sanctions them back. If America moves to embargo China, it would not look good for a Chinese embargo. As a matter of fact, while I'm talking to you all, right, I'm going to play a clip. This clip has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. The reason I'm going to play this clip is because I just thought about something that I was talking to you about, right? And I got a clip on my, a little short video on my main channel about this very thing, about what China would do. And I'm going to try to find it while the clip is playing so that I can come back and play you the clip to show you just how much times have changed. So while you're listening, let me try to find a decent clip for you all. Bear with me. I try to bring you guys the best. And remember what I said. If you believe that I'm not teaching you right, I challenge any and everybody to Google what I say, do your research, and come back and tell me I lied to you. All right? That's what I dare anybody. So I'm going to play this old clip. I played it on several shows before. I got to play this because I got to go try to find. I don't want any dead space. So I want to play this clip. It's talking about America's economy and the problems that she's facing. But I want to find this other clip that I've done. Okay, and it's a clip from one of my shows. So I'm gonna play this clip. Y'all pay close attention, and I'll be right back. I might stop it when I find the clip. All right. So be patient with your brother. Pay close attention.
Dr. Francisco, just before the break, Clive made the point that you're trusting the medium rather than the person. When it comes to the United States, I don't trust the person or the medium. I'd be happy if I never bought another American thing or saw another American dollar because I don't like bullies. Isn't this partly the end of the era of the bully?
I think multipolarity is here. I think that's the key, and the dollar is dying. There is no question about it. Let me give you some figures that are quite important. The GDP of the United States is 24 trillion. The debt, the public debt, is 30 trillion. The difference between the total gross domestic product and the debt is 6 trillion. 6 trillion is equivalent to the combined GDPs of the whole of the Latin American countries together, including Brazil. That gives you an idea of the problem. That's number one. There is a US debt clock, which you can find in the internet. I ran it before coming to the show. And I ran it for 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, the amount of debt that increased in the United States was 8 billion. Now, 8 billion is, if you have 3 of them, that is the GDP of Nicaragua. If you have 5 of them, that's the GDP of Bolivia. The United States have a very serious problem with infrastructure. Their productivity is low. The number of bridges in the United States that require urgent repair, not repair, urgent repair, is 65,000. The quality of the road, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, they produce a report every year, 42% of the roads are mediocre or in need of repair. The electricity plants, airports, and so on, everything is a complete mess. The United States doesn't have high-speed trains. It doesn't. Sorry to say it like this. Even Spain has them. So that gives you an idea of the problem. And the United States economy is growing at a rate of something between 2 and 1%. The Chinese economy, with all the problems, is growing at a rate of 7%. So that means in the next 10 years, arithmetically, the US economy is going to be 20% bigger, and the Chinese economy is going to be 70% bigger. Now, if you take what countries have done regarding this question of the dollar, possibly people do not know, but China and Japan are conducting their foreign trade in their currencies. Iran is conducting their business in no dollar. Russia and China, Iraq, and many other countries. But the recent decision by the Saudi Arabia to actually conduct the selling of their oil to China in yuan. Now, China buys 25% of the total output of Saudi Arabia. This is 30 billion. The United States purchases only 7%. So if you keep going down, you can see that there is already a multipolarity of initiatives. What we don't have is the international architecture, financially speaking, so that there is a system which is coherent, is international, it works, it has legal security that gives you legal confidence that if you enter into a transaction in that system, you know, whatever it is going to be respected. That has to happen, but it's beginning to take place already. So the United States is in a real trouble, and it doesn't have any possibility. I just looked at the budget that Joe Biden presented to Congress for 2023. It's a very long document. It has three key components. Number one, domestic security is going to give to the police domestically huge amount of resources. The organization Black Lives Matter said this is not what we want. You know what happened when they have resources. And basically, Biden is trying to get votes from the right by doing this. That's number one. Number two is international security. He increased the budget, the military budget, to $773 billion, which is 30 billion more than in the previous administration. And surprisingly, he's going to apply a tax of 20% on the fortunes of 100 million upwards, which is going to produce 360 billion, and is going to reduce the budget deficit and the deficit of the United States by 1 trillion in 10 years. So it's totally useless. And in order for this budget to be passed, he needs to win it in the House, in Congress. He's got a majority.
Control over which he may well lose in November.
Certainly, but at the moment, if we were to propose it, he will pass it in the House, but he will not be able to pass it through Congress because there is 50-50. And Democrat right-wing, Joe Manchin, already said he's not going to support it. So it's already, not only is useless as a proposal to recover the economy, but it's already dead before it begins. So that gives you an idea of the problems that they have. So the issue, strategically, from their point of view, is this. Do they continue waging war against everybody else? And who else is there to wage war? Their calculation, it seems to me, was if we are able to bully Russia and make them accept our way And then later on, we'll continue with that until, we produce something equivalent to regime change, isolating China thereby. And therefore, the next move is to attack China. And this one hasn't worked. The next one is certainly not going to work. So the United States is desperate because it's facing a very serious challenge. Number one, energy and resources from Russia to Europe, which really needs them, and the Belt and Road Initiative by China, which is at the moment is in the region of $5 trillion. So therefore, facing with this huge, very attractive embrace from these two nations, have huge resources, one natural resource, the other one technology, markets, money, and credit, and investment, infrastructure, is very difficult to say no. So the only possibility for them is war, war, war.
So I've been found the video. I just wanted to hear that out to let y'all know just the depths of how America is struggling and how war is her only solution. And remember, when that is the only language she understands, guess what? To get over, to talk to her, to make a point, you have to speak her language. You can't go to China speaking what is it? Let's just say Persian, and think the Chinese understand. You can't go to Iran speaking Scandinavian or what is it? Spanish, and think that the Iranians would understand. For there to be a connection somewhere, one or both must learn the other's language. And once you learn it, you have to implement it, right? Or else there was no use to learn it, right? So this is what I'm telling you. We look at this and we see that the only language that she speaks is war and threats. And we see at home, the collapse is very vivid for everybody. And we see abroad, her power collapse is real. Now, before I bring this article up and before I play that clip, I want to go to something. I was thinking about, as he was talking about the depths of how America is down economically. They were talking about just how much America spends a minute. So we're going to use the calculator, okay? And the reports are that America spends about $6 million a minute. Now, that is not the number she spends, and I'm going to tell you why, and we're going to do it the way the other person said it in just a minute. But we're going to say $6 million a minute. Now, we'll multiply. How many minutes are in an hour? 60, right? All right. So right there for 1 hour, that's $360 million that she spends, all right? And then we say, we multiply that times 12, because there's, or 24, excuse me. I say 12, but I was meaning to say 24. I was getting ready to say something else. So we say there's 24 hours, right? That's $8,640,000,000 she spends in a day. Then we do the math, and we say there's 365 days in a year. That's $3,153,600,000,000. Now hold on, Mr. Mike Maloof, one who knows in depth about the fudging of the budget in the Pentagon, okay, says that when they tell you something, it's 3 to 6 times, 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 times more than what they tell you. So now we're not going to go to the higher end of it. We're just going to cut it right there. We'll say 3.5 times, okay? That's $11,037,600,000,000 just spent right there that we can account for right there. How can you possibly believe that that is sustainable? That's not taking in consideration all of the black budget spending, all of the emergency appropriation bills, and all of this other stuff. That's just that. America's economy, as they say, 34 trillion. How in the hell is it $34 trillion? Do you notice every time her debt goes up, her economy goes up, her GDP goes up, even when the economic barometers deteriorate more and faster? Huh? If you really want to know the depths of what America's economy is, I got a video up, and I used the numbers of the CIA and the IMF and the World Bank. It's called and I believe it's America is #1 no more. It's a short video. I believe it's about 55 minutes on this channel here. Go check it out and you'll get the numbers from the CIA and from the IMF and the World Bank. Okay, and you'll see that America is lying about a 24 and a $34 trillion economy, according to their own metrics. Okay, but when I tell you that, everybody get mad at me. But hey, it's all good. So now we have an understanding of that. And so this article was on RT. And RT sometimes acts as a mouthpiece of the West, which is crazy. But anyway, but it says this, the title of it is Blinken threatens China over Russia ties. China didn't threaten the United States over Philippine ties or Japanese ties or South Korean ties or European ties or African ties. Why? Because it's none of China's business who are you friends with. And the same can be said of the United States. But when you got that exceptional state of mind, do as I say, not as I do. That's America. So this is what it says. And then we're going to go to this video in just a second, okay? Bear with me, okay? We don't have much time left on the air, so bear with me. The U.S. Secretary of State says Washington is prepared to impose more sanctions on Beijing over the alleged transfer of military components. Stop right there. What is America doing to Ukraine? Isn't she openly boasting about transferring military components and equipment to Ukraine? Didn't she just pass a bill to fund the Ukrainian budget? Huh? Do as I say, not as I do. Isn't she boastful and bragging, and all of her politicians are talking about the weaponry that they're giving to Ukraine? And yet, Ukraine, she says, is her ally. China says Russia is hers. So what gives you the right to give them missiles, bombs, and rockets, but you don't want me to give them a rock, a bat, or a slingshot? Huh? See, nobody ever puts this to you guys this way. But you guys know I'm telling you the truth. I'm going to be real with you now. I don't dance around the truth. I'm going to tell it to you straight. And so the article goes further and says this. Washington is ready to introduce more sanctions against China over its alleged transfer of dual-use goods and components, which it claims can be used by the Russia. It meant to say Russia. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said on Friday. Now check this out. Isn't that exactly what America is doing? Isn't that what the whole of Europe is doing, the NATO nations? Aren't they doing that very thing in Ukraine? Projection. Do you understand? I'm going to vilify you with the accusation that you're doing what everybody knows that I'm doing. But if I keep the onus on you, nobody will question me. Projection. Okay? I'm telling you, it is absolutely crazy. So, but Xi Jinping says that if America does that, China will respond. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to pull it up right now. See, I do all this on the fly, on the spot. It comes boom right there. So the Chinese says, where is the article? Here it is. The Chinese warned the U.S. of crossing their red lines and said that if you start this the sanction war, we'll follow through with you and we'll see how it ends. The Chinese are telling them, listen, we know that you're not the power that you used to be, and we're not that nation that you used to look down to. So let's just make this a win-win situation. But when has the empire ever sought to make a win-win situation? I have to have the majority, and if you get a little bit after that, we're cool. But if you try to get what I got, this is unacceptable. And this is our red line, and you're stepping on the threshold for war. That's America's thinking. So now, you guys, give me a second. I'm working on this new thing that StreamYard has, and I'm gonna try to pull it up. I don't have to download it, so I'm gonna try to pull it up for y'all. So charge it to my head, not to my heart if it doesn't work. It worked earlier today, so I'm gonna try it again, okay? So give me 1 second and bear with me, okay? Here we go. Let's see. I'm gonna bring it to you in just a second. Video file. Give me 1 second. Nope, 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 nope. It said invite. What? Invite? Share screen, I believe. I think it's share screen. All right. Share screen. So give me a second. Let me see if this works. So 1 second, everybody. We're seeing if it's come. All right, it came up. Now hold on 1 second. I'm gonna play just a little clip, and I'm gonna turn my phone up. I'm gonna go to it on YouTube to see if I can hear it. Because if I can hear it, you can hear it. If not, I'm gonna try to do it another way. So give me 1 second. Okay. Give me 1 second. Let me try to play a little bit of it real quick. So let's see. They got all of this stuff, and I'm trying to learn, and I'm dumb as a brick when it comes to this. Okay, everybody, hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can get it up there. So you might have a little feedback. So give me a second. They got all of this stuff. So hold on. I'm trying to see. You know what? Let me see if it'll play right here.
Simply the fact is that the United States, in its kind of monopoly stage of economic development, decided that it was going to financialize everything. What I mean by that is that the U.S. corporations decided that they were just going to ask people to give them money or demand money from people.
Hold on, everybody. I'm trying to see if it's going to work. Let me see if it'll play. Yes. Okay. All right. There we are. It's working. I can hear it on my phone, so I know that you'll be able to hear it when I play it. So I'm going to rewind it for a second, and I want you to listen to what Kiji Noy, Asian correspondent. He works for he does writings for Asia Time and a whole bunch of other platforms and magazines. And we were talking about this very situation of America sanctioning China. Well, here's the conclusion that he's come to. Hold on 1 second. Let's see if it'll. Now, the last question of the night to you is this. If war breaks out, well, we know, but I have to pose this question to you because America is so dependent on China's export to the United States, and 93 to 95% of all goods on U.S. shelves and all the stores come from China or a subsidiary of China. When war breaks out and China starts an embargo on the United States, what will the economic scene look like? Because all hell should break loose because there will be massive bankruptcy, massive unemployment, massive store closures, it's scarce food, scarce items. Where would this take America at home when war breaks out in Asia between the two superpowers?
Let's just think about that a little bit. I gave you a small idea when I said that, there are 1,500, almost 1,600 companies that supply parts that the United States uses for air-to-air missiles or air-to-land missiles, right? So that gives you a sense. That's in a sector where they don't want that dependency. But if you think about everything else, you're absolutely right. The United States cannot live without China. There's a fundamental sense in which we are like conjoined twins, right? And if you separate the conjoined twins, you have to understand that it's the other twin, China, which has the beating heart and the liver and the brain, right? Right. So what's going to happen to the United States? That's exactly as as anybody could predict. Our economy is going to crash. Everything is going to be difficult. You think of your average car. Your average car has 30,000 components in it. A lot of those components come from China. Think of your jet. It has 300,000 parts. A lot of those components come from China. So if you cut China out of the picture, yes, we have to be ready for chaos. We have to be ready for supply chains to break down completely. And during COVID, we got a small taste of what that was like. Not enough chips, we don't have cars, right? Building materials are short, everything is short. But simply the fact is that the United States, in its kind of monopoly stage of economic development, decided that it was going to financialize everything. What I mean by that is that the US corporations decided that they were just going to ask people to give them money or demand money from people and not make anything useful. This is what we call a rentier economy. You just collect rents, right? Well, how do you collect rents? Essentially, you collect rents because you have the force to coerce other people to pay you rent, but you're still not creating anything anything productive. They sometimes say that GM is a finance company masquerading as a car manufacturer, right? I mean, they were making more money at one point from their loans than they were from selling cars. So there's a way in which the US has financialized its economy in incredibly non-productive ways. And therefore, it needs to have a productive substrata that's providing it everything it needs. And so if it decides to go to war against its productive subalterns, against its engine, right? Against, you're going to kill the goose, right? That lays the golden eggs. How is that going to work out for you? It's not. It's an act of madness. It's an act of suicide. And so that is what the ruling imperial elite have on the agenda. Why do they think this way? They don't think. They just believe. They're true believers. They believe that they are engaged in a war of good and evil. As Reinhold Niebuhr was the kind of architect of the Cold War, he said that we have to risk the end of the world in order to prevent the rise of the global South, of socialist movements. They honestly believe that. They really, when you hear them talk to themselves, they actually say these things to themselves. And that is what's so frightening, that this imperial elite is so out of touch with reality and so stuck on its ideological crusade that it would rather see the end of the world than the end of their power, because the end of their power for them is the end of their world. It's not the end of the world, but it's the end of their world as they see it. And they would rather end the world than let that happen.
You see, I'm not lying to you all. I've been telling you all that these people are insane. They're lunatics. They are lunatics. And they are prepared to take the world to thermonuclear war. If I can't rule, I'm killing everybody. That's their mind. Isn't that a psychopath? These people are socio and psychopaths. And they just wear suits and talk the talk and talk the lingo and walk the walk, trying to make you believe that they're better than what they are. But these people are sociopaths, psychopaths, killers. If I can't get my way, that's a spoiled child. If I can't have my way, I'm not allowing anybody to play basketball. I'm taking my ball and go home. And like you see in some of these areas, when they get into an argument, the guy leaves the basketball court and comes back and shoot up everything. That's what America is doing. She can't score. In her mind, she thought she was Michael Jordan in his prime. And when she got on the court, she realized that she wasn't even a bench sitter. And so now anger and rage is setting in because she's not what she thought she was. She's not what the propaganda that she kept feeding out said she was. And other people are not what they are. They now have flipped positions. And this is unacceptable in the mind of these lunatics. Which means that, like I told you, these people are preparing to take the world to war. So I want you to prepare yourself spiritually, mentally. Spiritually and mentally. That's the only way you're going to get out of this. I don't care how much gold you got stored up. I don't care how much food you have stored up. That's a good thing to have. You can't eat gold. You can't spend food. But you need to have those and all of the essential items. But if you don't have spiritual wealth, a connection with the divine creator, all of that is for naught. Because that's the only way out of what is gripping this world. On that note, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on another edition of the most powerful platform for truth anywhere, bar none, on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and spiritual and mental edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. Join us next time as we come to you with more powerful truth. We go out the same way that we always come in, with love in our heart for each and every one of you, if you love truth. But know that the love that we have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that my God, Savior, and Redeemer has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy definitely loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you all for joining me on another edition. We're out of here.